Shin just a dude trying to log out after beating the final boss, but life hits him with the ultimate nah. Instead of freedom, he wakes up in the same game world, except now it's real and he's trapped in the future, centuries after his so-called victory. Max level OP gear and skills that could wipe out nation, but what does he do? He plays it lucky, because flexing too hard in a broken world, that's how you get a target on your back. No chill, no logout button, just Shin navigating a world that thinks he's a legend, while he's just trying to figure out how the hell he ended up here. The story kicks off with New Gate, the most popular MMORPG, where players get to live out their wildest fantasy. Warriors, mages, heroes, anything is possible. But dreams turn to nightmares when the game stops letting people log out. No escape, no explanation. The only way to survive is to beat it. Shin, the strongest player in the game, isn't about to let it end like this. He fights through dungeons, wipes out enemies, and keeps pushing forward until he stands face to face with the final boss. After a brutal battle he wins, a system unlocks. The nightmare is over. Players log out one by one, finally free. But Shin stays behind to make sure everyone makes it out safely. Just as he tries to leave, the world shifts. The next thing he knows, he's 500 years in the future. His skills are stronger. His inventory is intact. Everything else is completely different. He uses a talisman to track down his old hideout, but before he gets there, he stumbles into trouble. A group of humans drags an elf girl through the streets, demanding answers about Schnee Razor. He doesn't think, he acts. Fight is over in second, and the girl is safe. She introduces herself as Tiara, a student of Schnee, but something about her is off. Her dark hair isn't normal. It's a curse she's carried since childhood. Shin takes one look and knows he can fix it. He works his magic, and a small part of her hair turns silver again. Overwhelmed, she steps past the barrier that has trapped her for years. As a thank you, she hands him a letter of introduction. Shin wastes no time. He heads straight for the Adventurers Guild in Belric Kingdom, skipping every step with the letter in hand. The guild master takes one look and knows exactly what it means. This isn't just a piece of paper, it's something worth protecting. To make sure Shin is the real deal, the guild master puts him to the test. The results aren't even close. Shin's power isn't just real, it's terrifying. Shin leaves the guild master behind and takes on his first mission. He is a G-rank adventurer and has no choice but to accept whatever is available. His task is simple: gather herbs in the monster forest outside town. What should have been an easy job ends up taking 3 hours. Just as he prepares to return to the Adventurers Guild, a high-level monster appears. The Skeleton Knight, level 359, stands in his path. This is exactly what he needs, a real challenge. A chance to test his strength in this world 500 years later. The fight begins, but something feels off. Shin trades a few blows, but gains no advantage. The real shock comes when he notices the monster's weapon, a sword infused with light attribute. An undead creature wielding a weapon meant to destroy its kind. His attacks do nothing. His weapon's durability is nearly gone. One more strike, and it will break. There's no point in holding back. He releases his full power. The moment he activates limit release, light floods the battlefield. In a single decisive blow, the Skeleton Knight is gone. Victory should feel satisfying, but there's a problem. The monster's sword, the one thing he wanted, is nowhere to be found. It was knocked too far away. Even so, the battle proves one thing: he finally understands his true strength in this world. Shin grows more intrigued by how New Gate has transformed into a reality-based otherworld. The mechanics, the rules, the way things work, it all feels like a twisted version of the game he once knew. Meanwhile, chaos erupts in the kingdom. The princess's room is completely destroyed. The cause is none other than the flying object that crashed straight into it. The light attribute sword Shin had knocked away during his battle. Oblivious to the trouble he has just caused, he takes the gemstone from the defeated enemy and reports his victory to the Adventurers Guild. The reaction is instant. Shock spreads through the guild. To them, a level 359 undead knight isn't just a strong opponent, it's a kingdom-level monster, a threat that would usually take an entire S-class adventurer team to defeat. The fact that Shin took it down alone leaves the staff speechless. He doesn't waste time basking in their reaction. Instead, he heads straight to the town's library, determined to understand this world better. The kingdom has existed for 511 years. He searches for records of the moment when players log out of the game, but there is nothing. No hints, no traces, nothing to explain what happened. But he doesn't leave empty-handed. The races, the structure, the setting, everything matches the game world he once knew. The similarities are undeniable. 2.5 hours later, he steps into the Adventurer's Tavern, a place filled with chatter, tension, and the scent of alcohol. This is where he meets one of the strongest individuals in the world, Wilhelm, a man known as the Vampire. His weapon, the magic spear Venom, was once a legendary weapon in the game, powerful enough to rival even mythic-grade items. At level 188, Wilhelm is no ordinary adventurer. Wilhelm's sharp gaze lands on Shin, and in an instant, he sees through the disguise. To everyone else, Shin's outfit looks like casual clothing, but Wilhelm knows better. That so-called casual wear is stronger than the heavy armor worn by the other adventurers in the tavern. The name Vampire isn't just for show. Wilhelm's spear drains the life force of his enemies, a power that has fueled countless rumors, turning him into a feared legend throughout the town. Shin and Wilhelm share a meal together. Meanwhile, inside the Adventurers Guild, the higher-ups gather, their faces serious. They examine the gemstone Shin submitted and confirm the truth. He really did defeat the level 359 undead knight. But that isn't their only problem. Something worse has happened. The kingdom princess's room was destroyed by a massive sword. They put the pieces together. The weapon that crashed into the room belonged to the undead knight. Scholars rush to study it and make a shocking discovery. This isn't just any sword. It's a top-tier artifact, stronger than the kingdom's national treasure, Holy Sword. But while the guild scrambles to deal with this mess, Shin is completely unaware. He spends his time walking through town, eating snacks and thinking about what to do next. As he enjoys his food, he notices a small cat-eared girl staring at his snack. Her eyes are wide. She looks ready to grab it. Seeing how hungry she looks, he hands it to her. She happily eats and mentions she is waiting for someone. That someone turns out to be Wilhelm, the same man Shin met earlier that day. The girl is from an orphanage. Despite Wilhelm's cold and distant nature, he often helps take care of the children. He is surprised to see her so comfortable around Shin. Normally, she avoids strangers. Just as they are about to leave, she suddenly runs up to Shin and whispers in his ear. She asks him to go to the northern forest and save the fox. Back at the inn, Shin thinks about the girl's words. He doesn't understand what she means, but since he is already waiting for Shin's reply, he decides to check it out. The next morning, he heads to the northern forest. Before that, he stops at the moon shrine and leaves a weapon for Tiara. If her master sees it, they will recognize him immediately. Tiara stares at the weapon, shocked by the energy coming from it. Shin explains, and she quickly realizes the truth. This is Shin's personal weapon, something only Shin and Shin can use. But that isn't the most surprising part. The weapon was made from the cores of legendary creatures, the Black Death Dragon, the Sea Chaos Beast, and the Spirit Fox. She finally understands. Shin is not just strong, he's on a completely different level. Shin shows off again without meaning to. He hands Tiara 2 envelopes and explains how to use them. She only needs to write a name, add a message, and say send. The letter will deliver itself instantly. She stares at it, amazed. Magic this convenient feels unreal, but one question lingers in her mind. If it's so simple, why didn't Shin just use it to contact Shin directly? He already tried. The night before, he attempted to send a message, but nothing happened. After testing a few things, they figure out why. Shin has never met Shin in this world, so the letter has no target. The magic failed. Tiara, fascinated by the tool, asks for more envelopes, determined to study them later. Only after Shin leaves does she realize something obvious. She could have just sent a letter to her master herself. Shin moves on, heading deep into the northern forest. The moment he steps inside, something tries to mess with his mind. A powerful psychological suggestion tells him to turn back. If he were anyone else, he might have obeyed. But his resistance to mental interference is too strong. The effect shatters, and he pushes forward without hesitation. After a while, he reaches a small shrine. Inside, he finds it, a small white fox curled up and unmoving. This has to be the fox cat-eared girl mentioned. He reaches out and checks its condition. The truth is worse than he expected. The fox is both poisoned and cursed, its body barely clinging to life. He doesn't waste a second. A healing spell erupts from his hand, removing every negative effect at once. The fox stirs, its eyes flickering open. At the same time, the world outside shifts. The barrier around the shrine shattered. Undead creatures rise from the ground, surrounding them from all sides. Shin doesn't react. No panic, no hesitation. He grips his weapon and swings. One strike is all it takes. The monsters fall instantly. He exhales, thinking it's over. Then the system prompt appears. 2 hostile entities still remain. The white fox statue in front of Shin shat. From the debris, 2 massive white foxes emerge, their bodies wrapped in thick, swirling miasma. The air turns heavy. Something is wrong. These creatures aren't normal monsters. Their levels flash before him minus 674, the highest he has encountered in this world. The foxes lunge. He dodges, moving fast. There is no room for mistakes. In an instant, he casts shadow magic, binding their movements before they can attack again. But the victory is short-lived. The miasma erupts from their bodies, spreading like a living force. Everything around him disappears. Sight, style, and even his sense of space, gone. He is completely blind in the fog. Worse still, the small white fox in his hands makes it impossible for him to unleash his full power. Then the fox in his arms shifts slightly. It isn't just awake, it understands. With a soft nudge, it directs his attention to something, the magic circle that had once sealed it. He follows the hint, stepping into the center. The moment he does, fog lifts. He can see again. Fox is charged. He doesn't hesitate. In one swift move, he binds them. Light explodes outward. The battle ends. The monsters vanish. With the danger gone, he finally takes a closer look at the small white fox. Its stats reveal the truth. It isn't an ordinary creature. It is a spirit fox, level 211. His mind goes blank. In the game, spirit foxes were among the rarest boss monsters, taking the form of either a humanoid or a giant fox. A cub like this shouldn't even exist. But here it is, alive, real, and staring at him with trust. It chooses him. Just like that, it decides to follow its savior. Thousands of miles away, Shin receives a letter. Since saving the fox at the shrine, Shin has unknowingly formed a master-servant contract. He names the small white fox Yuzuha. With the contract in place, Yuzuha's true nature is hidden. No one weaker than Shin can sense that it is a divine-level spirit fox. With his new companion by his side, Shin returns to town. His first stop is the guild. The appearance of so many undead in the northern forest isn't just unusual. It is a sign that something far bigger is coming. Shin's reputation is growing fast. The twin sisters at the reception desk nearly argue over who gets to assist him. He barely pays attention. After submitting his report, he scans the mission board for his next quest. Among the usual requests, one stands out. The orphanage is looking for someone with a purification skill. He doesn't hesitate. The cat-eared girl who led him to the white fox came from the church orphanage. If they need help, he will answer. Without wasting time, he takes the request and heads to the orphanage. The moment he arrives, the nun in charge eyes him with suspicion. She doesn't trust him. That changes when Millie appears. The moment she recognizes Shin, the nun's tense expression softens and she finally allows him inside. She explains the request in in detail. The orphanage needs someone who can use purification. In this world, not everyone is born with skill, so posting a request was little more than a desperate attempt. No one actually expected a response. Yet here Shin is, sitting right in front of her. Not only does he have the skill, but he also knows how to obtain it. He asks for no payment. Instead, he wants to know more about Millie, her abilities, her reason for needing purification. The answer surprises him. Millie is no ordinary child. She holds the title of astrologer, someone who can see glimpses of the future. The vision she had of the white fox wasn't luck, it was a prophecy. A power like that is dangerous. If the wrong people find out, the consequences could be catastrophic. Fortunately, the adventurers who grew up in the orphanage act as protectors, keeping her safe. As for purification, the reason for the request is simple. The orphanage is on the verge of closing. The church doesn't have a skilled priest, and without one, another priest must take over. Time is running out. The new priest arrives and doesn't take long for everyone to despise him. Greedy and heartless, he makes his intentions clear. The orphanage is unprofitable, so he wants to shut it down. The children hate him. The nun can do nothing to stop. With no other choice, she brings a young girl to meet Shin. She is the one chosen to learn purification. Before anything else can happen, Wilhelm appears. Shin recognizes him immediately, the same man he met in the restaurant. The nun had mentioned that someone from the orphanage would protect it. That someone is Wilhelm. He grew up here, and now that Millie has put her trust in Shin, he does the same. Shin wastes no time. He explains the requirements for learning purification. The girl must personally defeat 200 undead monsters, each at level 150 or higher, while holding an item called the Holy Prayer Gem. The room falls silent. The sheer difficulty of the task leaves everyone stunned. Shin, as usual, says it like it's no big deal. That night, Wilhelm finds Shin. He doesn't waste words, and he asks one direct question. Is Shin a chosen one? Shin has no idea what that means. Wilhelm explains. Chosen ones are people born with knowledge beyond ordinary understanding. Everything about Shin, the way he fights, things he knows, the way he speaks, fits the description perfect. The next day, the three of them travel to the Undead Plains, a land crawling with high-level undead. Shin hands the Holy Prayer Gem to the girl. Then the power leveling begins. He weakens the monsters with his skills, bringing them to the brink of death. The girl finishes them off one by one. The process is slow, but the path to learning purification has begun. Wilhelm joins the group, ready to help. They clear the outskirts of the Undead Plains without trouble, but the real challenge waits deeper in the forest. The moment they step inside, stronger undead appear, drawn to them like moths to a flame. Shin wastes no time. He splits the battlefield. He takes one side, Wilhelm takes the other, and Yuzuha stays back to protect the girl. The fight begins. Monsters fall one after another, and the girl's level rises at an insane speed. Meanwhile, far away on the other side of the Undead Plains, the kingdom's princess is locked in battle. She wields a massive greatsword, the same one Shin knocked away during his fight with the Skeleton Knight. The Ray team fights desperately, but the enemy is too strong. Then Shin arrives. He moves like a blur, cutting down the Skeleton Knight in an instant. The battle should be over, but it isn't. Thick black mass of magic gathers into a sphere, swirling like ink. Then it spreads, shifting, growing, taking shape. In the blink of an eye, it becomes something terrifying. A giant skeleton, a skeleton lord, level 804, a monster capable of wiping out an entire kingdom. Even Shin would feel pressure facing an enemy like this. But the real problem isn't just its strength. The skeleton lord doesn't fight alone. It summons an endless army of undead, filling the battlefield with minions. Even if Shin uses his full power, taking them all out in time is impossible. Just when things look grim, help arrive. One of Shin's former NPC retainers appears. After 500 years, master and servant stand together once more. Before all of this, Shin's group had completed their mission. The nun successfully changed her class, and they were ready to head back to town. But then happened. The sky darkened. Magic gathered. The skeleton lord appeared, and with a single punch, it shattered the barrier over the entire undead plain. Wilhelm watches in shock. One strike. That's all it takes for the skeleton lord to shatter the barrier over the entire undead plain. There's no doubt in his mind, this isn't just a strong monster. This is a nation-destroying threat. Before they can even think about escaping, the skeleton lord moves. Dark energy spreads across the land, summoning an army of undead. Within seconds, Shin, Wilhelm, and the girl are completely surrounded. Wilhelm grips his weapon and turns to Shin. Their only chance is to break through together. That's the plan, or so he thinks. Shin lifts his restriction. The air shifts. Pressure around him becomes unbearable. Wilhelm freezes. This isn't normal strength. This is something on a completely different level. Shin's aura alone is overwhelming. Then, without hesitation, he makes a decision. They aren't running. Leaving this monster alone isn't an option. He will deal with it. Before Wilhelm can argue, Shin casts a speed-boosting buff on him. The message is clear. Escape. Shin stays behind. The battle begins. The small white fox on Shin's head moves first. Blue foxfire erupts from its mouth, swallowing the undead in its path. Every creature it touches turns to ash. Shin follows. His katana hums with red lightning. One strike straight into the ground. The impact is instant. Skeletons explode. The ground collapses. A massive crater replaces the battlefield. The sheer intensity of his attack lights up the sky. Far away, she notices. She doesn't hesitate. That aura, she knows exactly who it belongs to. Without a second thought, she heads towards Shin. Meanwhile, Shin scans the battlefield. He expects half the enemies to be gone. But when he checks the map, reality hits. He's barely made a dent. Their numbers are endless. Then something changes. A new signal appears on his map, moving fast. Wherever it passes, undead vanish. He doesn't need to think twice. He runs toward it. When he arrives, his suspicion is confirmed. It's Shni. There's no time to speak. More undead undead close in from behind. The small white fox leaps from Shin's head and lands on the ground. In an instant, a barrier forms, blocking the monsters for now. In the next moment, Shni moves. Without a word, she jumps straight into the arms of Shin. For Shni, this moment is everything. 500 years of loneliness, waiting, hoping. Now her master stands before her. There are so many things she wants to say, so many questions she wants to ask. But when she hears Shin's voice, I'm back enough. The past can wait. Right now, they have a far bigger problem in front of them. The skeleton lords still stand. There's no need for words. Master and servant move as one. Their magic flares combining into a spell designed to erase the undead. They raise their arms, activating a formation. Holy light floods the battlefield. The undead fall instantly, their bodies vanishing into nothing. Even the skeleton lord staggers under its power. Shin doesn't waste time. He leaps into the air. One strike, one decisive blow. The battle ends. The skeleton lord crumbles to the ground, defeated. But just before it disappears, something unexpected happens. It speaks. Give me that power. Then, without another word, it vanishes. Shin steps forward and picks up its gem. Fight is over. With the immediate danger gone, he and Shni finally take a moment to sit. There's a lot to talk about. Shin begins. He tells her everything. How he cleared the game. How he stepped toward the light gate. How he blacked out. When he woke up, 500 years had passed. He wasn't idling away in some void. He was just gone. Shni listens, then shares what happened on her side. One day, without warning, everything changed. The NPCs gained the ability to act on their own. Shni had always known the truth. After Shin defeated the final boss, all NPCs were supposed to disappear. That was how the game worked, but for some reason, it never happened. The world remained. The people lived on. His retainers refused to sit still. For 500 years, they scattered across the world, searching for him. None of them expected to reunite like this. As they prepare to return to town, Shin notices something strange. Yuzuha's tail is split into three. Before he can even process it, Yuzuha wakes up and greets him with a good morning. He freezes. That shouldn't be possible. It turns out that the moment the skeleton lord vanished, Yuzuha began evolving. Shin doesn't fully understand why, but one thing is clear. Her transformation is far from normal. To avoid drawing attention, he decides to have her communicate telepathically and disguise her tails as one. She is undeniably adorable. Meanwhile, the kingdom's princess and her group arrive at the site where the skeleton lord fell. They had been struggling against waves of undead when a distant light flooded the sky, wiping out every enemy in an instant. They rushed to investigate, but when they arrived, all they found was a massive crater and a single weapon. Shin's red katana left behind in the chaos. One of the princess's retainers steps forward, eyes widening. This blade isn't just well made, it's something far beyond that. Only one person could have crafted something like this. The legendary blacksmith of black iron. For over 500 years, stories have been passed down about high-level human beings of overwhelming power, each one mastering at least one supreme skill. Even now, many ordinary people still worship them as deities. Shin's specialty has always been forging. In this world, he is known as the blacksmith of black iron. What Shin doesn't expect is that Princess has already figured it out. She knows exactly who he is. The moment she returns to the kingdom, she plans to visit the Mu Shrine and challenge him. On the other side, Shin makes a decision of his own. Wilhelm has seen too much. He was there when Shin lifted the seal. There's no point in hiding it. So without hesitation, Shin tells Wilhelm the truth. Shin doesn't hold back. He tells Wilhelm the truth. The power he used earlier was just a fraction of his true strength. Wilhelm stares at him speechless. He doesn't even try to respond. Before leaving, Shin hands Wilhelm an enchanted envelope, explaining that he can use it to contact him anytime. But Wilhelm doesn't take it. Shin sees right through him, stubborn as ever. So instead of waiting, he simply shoves the envelope into Wilhelm's hand. Then he says it. Wilhelm is the first friend he has made since arriving in this world. And for the sake of the orphanage, for the sake of the kid, Shin won't just stand by and do nothing. Wilhelm exhales. He finally takes the envelope. He doesn't say much, but his silence speaks for him. He acknowledges Shin as a friend. Shni watches from the side and sighs. Nothing has changed. Her master is exactly the same as before. No arrogance, no superiority. Just someone who protects the weak and stands by his friends, no matter who they are. With that settled, they return to the Mu Shrine. The moment Tiara sees Shni, she rushes toward her overjoyed. Then she stops. Shin is right behind her master. Confusion flickers across her face. She wonders why he is here. Shni answers before she can ask. Shin is the manager of the Mu Shrine. Tiara freezes. The words don't make sense. The Mu Shrine belongs to a legendary high-level human, a figure of myth, a being beyond comprehension. Shin had mentioned it before, but she had brushed it off as a joke. Now reality slaps her in the face. The person she casually spoke to, the one she even asked for money, is him. Panic sets in. She immediately starts apologizing. Later, they sit down for dinner. Shni cooks, personally preparing every dish. Each bite is a new experience for Tiara, but something feels off. The food looks normal, yet every dish gives off an overwhelming aura. She can't help but wonder, what exactly is she eating? Shin and Shni talk casually, discussing the ingredients as if nothing is unusual. Meat, vegetables, spices, every single one is rare. Not just rare, extremely rare. Even Tiara, who had lived for hundreds of years, had only heard of these ingredients. Yet to Shin and Shni, they were as common as market produce. Maybe this was just how conversations between masters went. After the meal, Shin returns to the room he knows best. 500 years have passed, yet everything remains spotless. It feels like nothing has changed. He changes clothes and goes straight to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, something soft presses against him. Half asleep, he stirs. His hand brushes against warmth. Slowly, he opens his eyes. Shni is beside him, fast asleep. For a moment, he considers waking her. Then he notices something. A single tear rolls down her cheek, silent, unnoticed. He doesn't say a word. He just reaches out and gently wipes it away. Morning comes. When Shin wakes up, Shni is already gone, but something remains. A small tuft of silver hair on the bedding. Confused, he lifts the covers. The truth is unexpected. The little white fox, Yuzuha, has taken on a humanoid form. Seeing this, Shin prepares clothes for her and informs Shni and the others. One question lingers in his mind. Why was Yuzuha at the shrine in the first place? Even as a small white fox, she was still a spirit fox, meaning she had to be several hundred years old. It didn't make sense. Yuzuha thinks hard but can't remember much. The last thing she recalls is sunbathing peaceful. Then suddenly, everything collapsed. Instinct took over. She suppressed the area, keeping it from falling into complete chaos. But beyond that, her memory is blank. When Yuzuha wakes up, she finally understands what happened. She had been on the brink of death. If Shin had arrived even half a day later, she might not have survived. The only reason she is still alive is because of Millie from the orphanage. Shin makes one thing clear. Yuzuha should visit Millie and thank her when she gets a chance. Shni brings up something else. There's someone Shin needs to see immediately. The name shocks him. Gerado, one of his former NPC retainers, a beastman. Shin knows the lifespan of high-level beastmen. At best, they live up to 150 years. By all logic, Gerado shouldn't still be alive. Shni explains the situation. He doesn't have much time left. That's why Shin needs to go now. Gerado isn't just alive, he's the Beast King, the one who united the entire beastmen, but his time is running out. Shin understands. There's no hesitation. He decides to leave the next morning. Tiara and Yuzuha go with him. With Tiara's curse lifted, this is the perfect time for her to finally explore the world. And as for the Moon Shrine, Shin stores it away. Shni, on the other hand, has a different mission. She will head to the kingdom first and report everything about the Skeleton Lord. Once she's done, she will meet up with Shin. Before they part ways, she suggests something else, forming a party. That way they can communicate anytime through party chat. It turns out some of the game systems still work in this world, but there's a catch. Only Shin can see the interface. Before leaving town, Shin takes Tiara to the Adventurers Guild to register as an adventurer. For her, the experience is overwhelming. After spending 100 years as a shut-in, everything in town feels new. Every sight, every sound, she takes it all in one step at a time. Tiara walks beside Shin, completely absorbed in the sights around her. Without thinking, she grabs his hand, following his lead. She doesn't even realize what she's doing until Shin reminds her. The moment she does, her face turns red. Embarrassed, she quickly lets go. Later, at the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist greets them and immediately upgrades Shin's rank. He is now an E-level adventurer. The guild has reviewed his reports. He took down a high-level skeleton knight. He wiped out an army of undead. Either of those feats alone would have made him an S-level adventurer. But the guild has a problem. If they promote him too fast, it might cause friction with other adventurers. To keep the peace, they decide to raise his rank gradually. Then the receptionist notices Tiara. Her entire attitude shifts. Suspicious, sharp. She questions her identity, her tone full of doubt. Shin doesn't want trouble. He cuts in, changing the subject before things escalate. He mentions their next destination and asks if there are any suitable quests along the way. The receptionist finds the perfect, an escort mission. A merchant needs protection on the way to Fonnit. Coincidentally, that's exactly where Shin is headed. They register Tiara as a G-level adventurer, and the two of them accept quests. Before leaving town, they stop by the orphanage. They say their goodbyes and leave behind protective items. Shin personally enchants them, layering them with powerful spells. Unless the enemy is absurdly strong, nothing will be able to harm the children. With Wilhelm away investigating the priest and Shin heading out to find his former NPC retainer, the charms are the only way to ensure the orphanage stays safe. Then they arrive at a secluded alley. Before setting off, there's one last thing to do. Shin returns to the Moon Shrine to store the entire building away, but Tara's attention is elsewhere. She stares at the small gem in Shin's hand, a teleportation gem. Magic like this had been lost for centuries. The idea of teleportation alone was already impossible, but creating gems with that power is unheard of. Then Shin speaks. His words are casual, almost careless. If he had the right materials, he could make as many of these gems as he wanted. Tiara doesn't even try to respond. There's no point. He's a legendary high-level human. At this point, nothing should surprise her. Shin activates the gem. In the blink of an eye, they are standing in front of the Moon Shrine. No delay, no transition, just instant travel. Then he moves on to the next task. He raises his hand and activates storage magic. The entire shrine vanishes. The Moon Shrine is special, and as its master, Shin can carry it with him at will. Its portable form is a simple moon-shaped necklace. He doesn't think much of it, but across the kingdom, chaos erupts. The moment the Moon Shrine disappears, the highest-ranking officials are alerted. The building had stood untouched 500 years. No force, no king, no monster had ever been able to lay a finger on it. And now, without warning, it's gone. Panic spreads, fear takes over. What kind of event could make something so unshakable suddenly vanish? In the midst of the chaos, one person remains calm, the second princess. Instead of joining the panic, she asks for intelligence reports. The answer comes quickly. She is on her way. The news doesn't solve everything, but it's enough to ease the tension. For now, by the afternoon, Shin reaches the carriage for their escort quest. Two adventurers stand before him, a draconian warrior, a red-haired lowly pugilist. Both have taken the same quest. Once all the adventurers are gathered, the client, an elderly merchant, arrive. With everything in place, they set off for Fonnit. The journey starts with introduction. The draconian is an A-level adventurer, a warrior like Shin. The redhead, on the other hand, is an E-level adventurer, a pugilist who relies on fists rather than weapons. Shin and the draconian exchange information about their profession. Warriors Warriors are rare, and the Draconian's birthplace, a small island, holds some surprises. Shin learns something interesting. The adventurer guilds that were founded by players back when the world was still a game. Before long, the carriage jerks to a stop. The reason becomes clear immediately. Bandits. They block path, weapons drawn, demanding the merchant hand over his money and goods. Their words are casual, but the meaning is clear. They have no intention of letting anyone leave alive. Then they turn their attention to the red-haired girl. The way they speak makes their intentions obvious. Disgusting. Shin doesn't just get angry. He sees. The bandits don't stop. Instead, they push further, saying even worse things, their confidence unshaken. Hidden behind the carriage, Tiara watches everything. She alone notices something different. Shin's aura of killing intent is nothing like before. He is darker, more dangerous. She doesn't want to see him like this. Meanwhile, the Draconian steps forward. His long sword gleams in the light as he points it at the bandit, warning them to leave. But the bandits don't react as expected. They don't flinch. They don't hesitate. They don't back down. Instead, they smirk. They know the Draconian is an A-level adventurer. They know the others are only E-level. This information gives them confidence. Shin immediately understands. This isn't a random ambush. This was planned from the start. Someone leaked their information. Someone set them up. The white-haired bandit opens his mouth, ready to taunt them again. He never gets the chance. An arrow whizzes past his face, striking one of the hidden ambushers in the wood. The moment of silence vanishes. Fight begins. The red-haired loli moves first. One punch. One enemy down. The power behind her attack is absurd, far beyond what an E-level adventurer should be capable of. The Draconian follows. His sword flashes. One clean stroke, and his opponent is sliced in half. No struggle. No resistance. Then comes Shin. The remaining bandits don't even get the chance to fight back. He wipes them out in seconds. Not a single one lasts beyond the first strike. The bandit leader watches in horror. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. His men had magic sword. Their intelligence reports said they were stronger. They should have won. Panic sets in. His confidence crumbles. Shin steps forward. One swing. The bandit leader's magic sword shatters on impact. The battle ends before it even truly begins. With the enemies defeated, Shin completes the guild quest. The Draconian and the redhead move on to their next destination. Meanwhile, Shin decides to wait for Shni in the town of Balel. The next step is clear. The journey to Fonnit is long. Walking isn't an option. A carriage is necessary, not just for speed, but also for comfort. After the last ride, Tiara's legs and back are still sore from all the bumps. They inspect several carriages, but the quality is disappointing. Cheap materials, uncomfortable seats, nothing worth buying. Neither of them is willing to waste money on something that won't last. Shin has an idea, a simple one given his true identity. As the blacksmith of darkness, modifying a carriage is nothing for him. To stay low-key, they pick an ordinary-looking one. A shop owner warns them they need strong horses to pull it. There's another option, monster, but only if they can tame ones that are loyal. They leave the shop and Shin activates his telepathic skill. The message is immediate. Shni is done handling the kingdom's affairs. She is on her way to meet him. Shni takes charge. The moment she hears that Shin is about to buy a carriage, she assigns herself a new task, finding the perfect horses. She assures him she won't disappoint. She also updates him on the situation back at the kingdom. The Moon Shrine's sudden disappearance sent the kingdom's high officials into a panic. Their faces turned pale. Their fear was almost comical. Shni doesn't see this as a bad thing. In fact, she enjoys it. The kingdom has spent years pretending to respect her while secretly trying to keep her under surveillance. The constant monitoring, the endless scheming, it has always been irritating. Some nations have gone even further. They have unilaterally claimed ownership of the Moon Shrine, as if declaring it theirs would make it true. The arrogance is laughable. More than once, she has entertained the idea of wiping those countries off the map. The real goal behind their actions is obvious. They want control. In their minds, the Moon Shrine is the key to owning Shni's power. If they control the shrine, they control her. Some fools have even tried a different approach. Marriage proposal, as if she would ever accept. With the party chat over, Shin turns his attention to something else, finding an inn. A stall owner overhears and offers a recommendation. They follow the lead and soon arrive at their destination. The moment they step inside, reality sets in. This isn't just any inn. This is the inn. The most luxurious place in town. One night costs half the reward from the escort mission, but the quality speaks for itself. Everything about the place is top tier. The comfort, the atmosphere, far beyond what one would expect in another world. Meanwhile, in the bath, Tiara and Yuzuha talk freely, completely unfiltered. Their candid conversation leaves Shin bright red. With nowhere to escape, he turns to the only option available. He walks over to the bed and pretends to admire the moonlight. The next morning, they return to the carriage shop. Shin gets to work. 2.5 seconds later, it's done. The modifications are complete. Tiara stands frozen, her mouth open. She hasn't even finished her exclamation when Shin receives a message. Shni has arrived. They head outside the city gate. The moment they lay eyes on the horse Shni brought, words fail them. It isn't a horse. It's a divine beast. Shni is unapologetic. Only a creature of this level is worthy of pulling Shin's carriage. The divine beast isn't just strong. It can freely change its size, making it easy to bring into towns and inns without causing trouble. This is exactly why she chose this wolf. With everything ready, they set off for Fonnit. The difference is immediate. The divine beast's speed is overwhelming. Passersby feel nothing but a gust of wind as the carriage flies past them. By the time they turn their heads, it's already gone. Inside, the ride is perfectly smooth. Not a single bump. Shin's modifications make sure of that. During the journey, something else catches Shin's attention. Yuzuha is communicating with the white wolf. Yuzuha explains its past. The wolf once lived on a sacred peak with its mother. One day, adventurers arrived. They killed her. The young wolf barely escaped. Weak and alone, it wandered until an elf girl rescued it. Later, after growing stronger, it returned to the sacred peek, hoping to see its savior again. But the truth was something it never expected. The elf girl was Tiara. Tiara listens, stunned. She remembered. As a child, she saved an injured puppy. She never imagined she would reunite with it over 100 years later. Shin makes a decision. The bond between them is real. The white wolf belongs with Tiara. They stop the carriage. Shin first dissolves the master-servant contract. Then, without hesitation, the white wolf accepts Tiara as its new master. That evening, Shin explains the reasoning of Shin. This isn't just about their past connection. Giving Tiara ownership of the white wolf means giving her another layer of protection, a way to defend herself when she needs it most. 2 days later, they arrive in Fonnit. The moment they step into the city, it becomes clear that their arrival was expected. A guide is already waiting for them. Shin wastes no time. He stores the carriage, shrinks the white wolf, and prepares for the meeting. Soon, they stand before his second NPC retainer, Gerado. In this world, high-level humans are seen as deity. Even the current Beast King and his daughters sit with perfect posture, showing nothing but respect as they meet Shin. At the center of it all is a white-haired man, first Beast King of the Beast Kingdom. Once he was simply Gerado, Shin's trusted retainer from his gaming days. But their bond was more than that. Master and servant, yes, but also comrade. Friends who had fought side by side, even breaking through a siege of thousands of monsters together. 500 years have passed, yet nothing between them has changed. Shin explains everything. His sudden disappearance, a lost time. The moment he woke up in this world. The conversation stretches into the evening, flowing as naturally as it did centuries ago. Then finally, Gerado speaks the words he has been holding back. His expression is calm, steady. His time is almost up. He might not last another month. He first noticed it weeks ago. Strangely, it happened around the same time Shin appeared. It was as if the frozen time within him had started moving again. As if he had been waiting for this moment, holding on for the chance to see Shin one last time. And now he has one final request, a duel. This is his wish, to stand against Shin one last time. To die not as an old man, but as a warrior. His expression is unwavering. His resolve is absolute. Shin accepts. But there is something that weighs on his mind, the future of the Beast Kingdom. The closest aides of Gerado might already sense what is coming, but the direct descendants, the Beast King and the Beast Princess, still remain unaware. That will have to change. Soon, that evening, Gerado gathers the Beast King and Princess. His tone is light, his posture relaxed. Then, with quiet certainty, he announces his decision. He has found his final resting place. The duel will take place in 1 week. A nearby forest will be the battlefield. The princess hesitates. He doesn't want to accept, but when she sees the resolve in her ancestors' eyes, she understands. This isn't just a fight, it's a warrior's final wish. In the end, she decides to witness it herself. For the next week, Shin stays in the Beast Kingdom. He prepared, not just for himself, but for Gerado. The Moon Shrine appears once more, presence leaving the kingdom in silent awe. Gerado's weapons have suffered the weight of time. That doesn't last long. Shin lifts a small hammer. One light tap, a burst of energy. Divine level equipment, worn and damaged, is restored in an instant. The sight leaves the onlookers speechless. The day before the duel, Shin personally hands the weapons back to Gerado. Under the quiet glow of the moon, they talk. The conversation drifts to Shin. Then, without hesitation, Gerado asks a question. If Shin finds a way home, will he leave Shin behind? Shin doesn't hesitate either. He speaks plainly. Leaving this world is the reason he keeps pushing forward. But that doesn't mean he won't look for a way to bring Shin with him. No sorrow, no goodbye. The day of the duel arrives, and there is only excitement. Gerado gives his final farewell to his people. They stand at the cliff's edge, watching. None of them cry. None of them beg him to stay. Instead, they witness something rare. For the first time in ages, first Beast King looks truly happy. Then the battle begins. The opening exchange is brutal. Weapons clash, blows land, and the ground trembles under the force of their strikes. The intensity is overwhelming. Then they move. The fight spills into the forest. A blur of speed and raw power. Trees fall. The earth cracks. The entire area shakes with their movements. Then something shifts. Gerado stops holding back. His true strength is revealed, and it is terrifying. Even Shin, watching from a distance, would struggle against this level of power. But this is only the beginning. The real fight starts now. Gerado transforms completely. Gerado knows the truth. If Shin wanted to, he could end this fight in an instant. But after 500 years of relentless training, Gerado refuses to go down without a fight. Even if just for a moment, he wants to sink his fangs into Shin. Shin's long-range lightning attack streaks across the battlefield. Gerado moves. Faster than the eye can follow, he appears behind Shin. A single devastating punch. For a brief moment, Shin is forced back. Green energy surges from the hands of Gerado. Shin counters, struggling against the overwhelming force. But before he can fully recover, Gerado vanishes again. What follows is a relentless storm of attacks, smooth, precise, deadly. The result of 5 centuries of training. Shin sees it and shame creeps in. He had actually thought about holding back, but that would be an insult to a warrior who's giving his all. Time to end it. Both unleash their strongest move. A blinding explosion shakes the battlefield. In the next instant, Gerado's sword shatters. He flashes behind Shin, lands one final hit, and collapses. His body reverts to human form. But he did it. He reached Shin. That alone is enough. Yet deep down, he knows the truth. Shin never went all out. With his last breath, he makes one final request. No mercy. A real send-off. Shin hesitates, then unleashes a massive energy blast. Gerado disappears, a satisfied smile on his face. The Beast Kingdom holds a grand funeral for Gerado. Warriors gather, paying their respects to a fighter who never gave up. After the ceremony, Shin sits alone in the spot where he and Gerado used to talk, eyes fixed on the moon. Silence hangs in the air. Only Shin understands his pain. Without a word, Shin pulls Shin into an embrace, and that's when Shin finally breaks, sending cutting off a comrade with your own hand. No one ever gets used to that. Then a new problem arises. Shin's identity might be exposed. If the royal family finds out who he really is, trouble will follow. She has a simple fix. Someone just needs to pretend to be Shin's fiancé. A single sentence, "I am his fiancé," should be enough to keep suspicions away. Before this, Shin and Tina had already been passing as members of the Beast tribe to avoid attention. Surprisingly, they like the disguise. It suits them well. At the funeral, Shin runs into another familiar face, Shibade, a high-ranking Dragonkin from a neighboring country. Later, Shin pays him a visit. Shibade, once the first dragon king of the Dragon Kingdom, had cut ties with the royal family but still holds influence. After 500 years, seeing Shin again leaves him overwhelmed. Without hesitation, he kneels. Shin panics and quickly tells him to stop. Then Shibade notices Shini's odd clothing and can't hide his confusion. Shini shrugs and claims it's Shin's preference. With that out of the way, Shin shifts back to the real mission. His next stop, the sacred grounds in the capital. Shibade decides to return to his country first, promising to join them later. Before he leaves, Shin hands him an enhanced divine weapon. Shibade's personal weapon, now boosted by 50%. With that, they part ways for now. Shin heads to the local adventurers guild looking for a mission. The goblin subjugation request seems like a perfect choice. Just as he prepares, the Beast King's daughter shows up eager to see the world. She insists on joining. Shin allows it but sticks to his plan. The goblins never stand a chance. They are wiped out before they can even react. After completing the mission, Shin returns to the guild to report. The receptionist hands him a letter left by the previous guild master. The message is clear. Someone important in the kingdom wants to meet him. The request seems urgent. Then it hits him. During his last monster hunt, he might have accidentally sent a monster's sword flying straight into the palace. If that's the case, he has some explaining to do. Before heading back, Shin meets with the Beast King and hands over Gerado's weapon. It was Gerado's final wish. With that done, he says his goodbyes. To save time and energy, Shin teleports the group to the Mu Shrine's former location using a crystal. The radar picks up something. Someone is watching them. Shini guesses they must be guarding the area, waiting for the Moon Shrine to return. She suddenly grows melancholic, speaking about waiting for someone who vanished without a trace. Shin understands that feeling all too well. But unlike her, he has no idea when he will leave this world. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild in the capital. Familiar receptionists greet them. The younger sister rushes off to report their arrival. The older sister wastes no time teasing Shin, pointing out how more and more beautiful girls seem to be gathering around him. Shin fires back, reminding her that he has also completed missions with Wilhelm. The moment that name is spoken, the entire guild falls silent. Wilhelm is infamous for his cold nature and never teams up anyone. Shin's reputation takes another leap in the guild's eyes. Back to the real issue. The palace is ready and Shin is allowed inside. The one waiting for him is the kingdom's grand mage. As expected, this is about the sword that went flying earlier. He explains what happened. A massive sword with a colored blade shot straight into the royal city and lodged itself into the bedroom of the second princess. The entire palace was thrown into chaos. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the sword itself is the real problem. Its material is unlike anything they have seen. Its quality surpasses even the kingdom's most treasured weapon. The mage demands to know where it came from. Shin knows he can't dodge the question any longer. There is no way out of this one. Before he can think of an excuse, the second princess sends a summons. The second princess has taken quite an interest in Shin. After returning to the Mu Shrine, he fills Shini and the others in on everything. Shini doesn't even have to think. The palace clearly has plans. Either they want him working in the capital, or they want to marry him off to some noble. Shin immediately wants nothing to do with it. Shini has a quick fix. He can pretend to be his wife. If that isn't enough, Tilna can step in too. Before they can settle on a plan, Yuzuha throws herself into the mix, proudly volunteering to be his wife. That idea dies instantly. She's underage. No chance. The next day, Shin heads to the palace and meets the second princess, Ryane. She wants detail. Shin keeps it simple. The skeleton knight was strong and his sword broke mid-battle. Ryan instantly rules out the idea of him being the chosen one. Her reason is simple. Since birth, she has had an intuition skill that has never been wrong. And since he has a letter of introduction from Shini, there's no reason to doubt him. With that out of the way, she gets to the real point. She wants to fight him. Shin has no choice but to accept. But if she figures out how strong he really is, things will get messy. He holds back a lot. Shin plays his role perfect. Even though the princess's movements are full of flaws, he has to act surprised. But that's not the real problem. At his level, even a light attack could seriously injure her. So he pulls off a tricky move. He compresses his already suppressed power even further until he matches her strength. The princess isn't weak. With his abilities held back, she comes dangerously close to landing a hit. In the end, she never realizes just how strong Shin really is. Instead, she walks away convinced she has found a worthy rival. The moment she looks satisfied, both the guards and Shin finally relax. Then the truth comes out. The sword that flew into the palace, it was Shin's holy light sword, and it had landed right in the princess's room. She had looked into it and summoned him for an explanation. The real problem wasn't just the damage, it was what the sword meant. In this country, when a man proposes, he gives a woman a sword. If he ever cheats, she has full rights to cut him into 18 pieces with that very weapon. Luckily, the princess isn't here for revenge. She knows it was just a misunderstanding. She doesn't want the sword as a love token, just as a powerful weapon. To smooth things over, she even offers Shin a massive amount of money, more than enough to retire and live in luxury forever. But Shin does something unexpected. He refuses. The princess is stunned. Anyone else would have taken the money without hesitation. Instead, Shin asks for one thing: access to the national magic magic library. What she doesn't know is that Shin could casually pull out a single coin from the game era, and in this kingdom, it would be worth billions. Money means nothing to him. What he truly values is knowledge, understanding this world and its secrets. After leaving the arena, he and the princess step outside, only to find every guard lying unconscious on the ground. Standing behind them is a minister of the kingdom. Something is wrong. Shin takes one look and knows. He's under the effects of charm and confusion magic. Before he can react, everything shifts. A teleportation spell activates. When Shin opens his eyes, he's no longer in the palace. A desolate ruin stretches before him. The only relief, Rien is safe beside him. But before he can decide his next move, Shni's voice bursts into his mind, frantic with worry. She almost thought he had vanished again. After quickly explaining the situation, Shin gives her one order: head to the royal city and track down the one responsible. Charm and confusion magic are forbidden spells, and their range is limited. That means the caster is still inside the palace. But there's something even worse. In that last moment before the teleportation, Shin sensed the one behind this isn't human. It's a miasma demon, the sworn enemy of mankind. This isn't the first time Shin has encountered them. The two foxes he fought earlier were under the control of these creatures. Their hierarchy is simple. The closer they resemble humans, the stronger and smarter they are. And judging by the complexity of this plan, charming a minister and teleporting the princess, this one isn't weak. A count-rank miasma demon, somewhere between level 300 and 400, is lurking in the royal city. Shni takes Tiara with her, using this as a chance to teach her how to deal with miasma demons. Before entering the palace, they cast stealth magic. Now invisible, they walk openly through the hall. Their target, the underground dungeon where the minister is being held. Tiara handles the first step. A simple hypnosis spell puts the guards into a trance. She takes the key, unlocks the door, and steps inside. And as expected, the minister is there. But just as she prepares to dispel his abnormal state, something strikes from behind. Several tentacles lash out. Shni is ready. Without hesitation, she cuts them down. That's when the real enemy finally shows itself. A hell miasma demon, level 423. They waste no time attacking. Shni doesn't flinch. She deflects every strike with ease. The demon, realizing it has no chance of winning, doesn't even try to escape. Instead, it sneers, mocking Shni as a spirit abandoned by its master. She doesn't respond. She simply puts away her weapon and draws the katana Shin gave her, Azuki. A second later, the battle is over. The demon's head hits the ground. With the enemy dealt with, Shni reports everything to the king. The truth comes out, and the minister's death sentence is lifted. Now there's only one thing left: finding Shin. The teleportation had sent him far from the capital. Through telepathy, they settle on a meeting place, fortress city of Balel. Shni wastes no time. She needs to get there as fast as possible. Shin and Ryan are trapped inside the Holy Land. They have no interest in exploring. The only goal, escape. A quick look around confirms it. They are inside a dungeon. Shin, an experienced dungeon explorer, takes the lead. He gives Ryan one simple rule: follow him and do nothing without his permission. They move forward. Monsters try to block their path, but Shin clears them out with ease. Everything is going smoothly. Then, a slime-like creature appears. Ryan doesn't think twice. It looks weak, so she attacks. Bad idea. Fight ends in seconds. She's completely overpowered. Before things get worse, Shin steps in. He takes care of the monster and pulls Ryan out of danger. They push forward and reach the final boss, a griffin. Shin quickly comes up with a plan. He creates openings, giving Ryan chances to strike. Together, they manage to behead the beast. But the victory is short-lived. The griffin regenerates instantly. No matter how many times they cut it down, it keeps coming back. There's no way to win like this. They have no choice but to retreat. Shin makes the call. Ryan needs to find an escape route while he handles the griffin alone. No more holding back. And as Ryan searches for a way out, Shin unleashes his full power. The fight is brutal. He beheads the griffin again and again, 30 times in total. Finally, the monster loses its ability to regenerate. Shin doesn't waste the chance. One final strike, and the griffin is done for. At the same time, Ryan finds the exit. Together, they leave the dungeon. Shin allows Ryan to stay close for now. Before they can focus on their next move, a massive horde of monsters appears, all heading straight for Balel. Ryan recognizes the pattern immediately. This is not a random attack. This is a flood. When magicless energy accumulates in sacred lands, it materializes into monsters. Once they take shape, they break free and rampage, destroying everything in their path. Shin assesses the situation. Most of the monsters are low level, nothing that poses a real challenge, but something feels wrong. All of them are moving in the same direction, straight for Balel. Ryan understands the reason. The Mist Karuta protects the land surrounding the sacred area. The only open route leads directly to the city. Bamel's fortifications are strong enough to withstand these floods, but the cost is always high. Too many lives are lost. Shin decides without hesitation. He will assist in the city's defense. The plan is straightforward. He will join the city guard and help repel a flood. When they arrive, he estimates the monsters will reach Balel in a few days. Ryan wastes no time and goes to inform the local lord. Before they part, she tells Shin to report to the Adventurers Guild. At the guild, Shin meets Baron, the guild master. He does not waste time on unnecessary explanation. The monsters have emerged near the sacred land of Kalkia and are advancing rapidly. If nothing is done, they will reach Balel soon. Baron hesitates. The information is too sudden. He is unsure whether to believe it. Shin does not argue. He presents his letter of recommendation from the sanctuary. That is enough to shift the situation. Then he adds another fact. One of his escorts is already in contact with the local lord. That confirms it. Baron makes his decision. A state of emergency will be declared. If the local lord is already involved, army will act without delay. With that taken care of, Shin leaves to find Ryan. Before he reaches her, a telepathic message comes through. true. It is Shin. She is almost at Balel. Shin tells her to inform Baron and the local lord that she will be assisting in the defense. Then mid-conversation, something else crosses his mind. There is a strange shop in town, Miaolan. Just as Shin is about to continue, someone steps in his way, Barrett. They sit down to talk and Shin brings up his plan, helping defend Balel from the incoming flood. Barrett isn't buying it. In his eyes, Shin alone is more than enough to wipe out the monsters without breaking a sweat. Shin sighs and explains the real issue. Right now, he's traveling with the second princess of Barlick. That means he can't exactly unleash his full power in front of her. Barrett shrugs, offering his help if needed. That's when Shin remembers something, the strange shop he stumbled upon the day before, Miaolan. The moment Shin mentions it, Barrett's eyes light up. That's not just any shop. It belongs to Hekado, an old friend of Shin. The revelation hit Shin like a truck. He never expected Hekado to still exist in this world. And the surprises don't stop there. Barrett drops another bombshell. Shadow and Holly are in Balel too. Shin is completely thrown off. He was sure all three of them had died in the game of death. Seeing his stunned reaction, Barrett pulls out a list, every confirmed player in this world. Then he hands over another one. This one is far more dangerous. It contains the names of known player killers. Barrett lays it all out. The moment they realized other players had made it into this world, Shin took action. She ordered a hunt for the player killers before they could cause more damage. Judging by Shin's expression, it's obvious he had no idea. Shin confirms it. This is the first time he's hearing about any of this. Barrett doesn't hold back. He calls Shin's decision a betrayal. In his mind, she should be punished for acting behind Shin's back. But Shin refuses to believe it. Shin would never betray him. Then something clicks. A memory surfaces. Shin once told him she didn't know anything about Miaoland. Barrett suddenly bursts into laughter. He was just messing with him. Knowing Shin, there's no way she'd ever try to hurt Shin by keeping secret. With that, their conversation wraps up. Barrett has his own business to take care of. After a flood, supplies always need restocking. And for him, that's the perfect chance to cash in. And as Shin walks away, his mind drifts back to his research on flood. There's a pattern. Sometimes when low-level monsters show up, a much stronger creature follows. The bigger the flood, the higher the chance of it happening. And this one's massive. A gut feeling tells him something powerful is coming. On his way, Shin runs into Tiara. After a quick exchange, she heads back to Shin, who is preparing for an important meeting at the local lord's castle. They need to coordinate with the Chosen Ones if they want any hope of stopping the flood. Their next stop is Taurus, the Lord of Balel. He lays out his entire battle plan. Shin takes one look and immediately gets to work. Since she's in charge of training the knights, she wastes no time. Until the day of the battle, she'll personally drill them into shape. Tiara already feels sorry for them. Training under Shin isn't just tough, it's pure hell. Shin doesn't care. In fact, she's decided to join the training herself. Meanwhile, something feels off to Shin. The area is too quiet, no monsters in sight. He suspects it's another side effect of the flood. Shin confirms it. She's seen this pattern before. The signs are clear. Whenever monsters disappear like this, they always return as a massive black wave. If that's the case, then this flood isn't just big. It's being led by something far worse. Shin's worst fear is confirmed. There's a boss at the center of this. After the strategy meeting, he pulls Shin aside. He needs to know, has she ever used large-scale spells in guild battles after he disappeared? She shakes her head. There was never a need. Most enemies crumbled under simple area of effect magic. That changes things. Shin tells her to start the battle with a large-scale spell. With that settled, he focuses on updating his disguises. Night falls. The battle is moments away. Rayan grips the sword Shin gave her. This is it. Perfect chance to see what it can really do. Shin pulls him aside, eyes serious. Whatever she needs to say, can't wait. But the battlefield isn't the place for heart-to-hearts. After the battle, she says, leaving no room for argument. No time for more words. The monsters are here. Shin unleashes a large-scale spell, her magic tearing through the horde. The attack lands, but the monsters keep coming. Shin frowns. That should have slowed them down more. He calls for Shin to fire again, but she shakes her head. She can't cast that spell repeatedly. The flood doesn't stop. The second wave is closing in. Shin pivots. No point in wasting his strongest moves now. Instead, he shifts to guiding the fight, saving his best skills for later. Tiara spots an opening and takes it, picking off enemies from a distance. Ryan charges in, the sword Shin gave her, cutting through monster after monster, until she meets something stronger. Not all of them are pushovers. She braces before she can react. Tiara lifts her bow, ready to cover her. She never gets the shot off. Wilhelm moves first, stepping in just in time to protect Princess. Rayan rushes to Tiara's side, restoring her mana so she can keep fighting. And Shin is already making his next move. His disguise activates, and with a single declaration, he steps onto the stage under a new name, Red. Shin signals for everyone to step back. If they stay too close, he won't be able to fight at full strength. Once the battlefield clears, he draws his weapon. A cursed blade that devours everything in its path. It's powerful, relentless, and insufferably chatty. Even mid-battle, the blade keeps running its mouth, throwing off his focus. Shin clenches his jaw and fights for the noise. The real challenge comes soon after, the demon leading the flood. With his single mind-warping attack, it turns nearby soldiers against their allies, plunging the battlefield into chaos. Shin wastes no time. He charges forward, tearing through the corruption at its source. When the dust settles, the demon is gone, erased completely. Victory calls for celebration, and Balel delivers. A grand ceremony unfolds, honoring those who fought. Shin, never one for the spotlight, endures it. To make things more bearable, he offers his arms to Shin and Tiara as they walk through the hall. They accept without hesitation. Then Ryan notices. She approaches, eyes sharp. Shin, ever direct, voices the suspicion hanging in the air. But Shin Shin sets the record straight. Rian was only interested in his equipment and spell, nothing more. She relaxes, satisfied with the answer. Rian, however, picks up on something else. Shin is distant, too distant. He calls him out on it, reading between the lines. He admits the truth. Getting too close to her would attract unwanted attention. She barely acknowledges the concern. Instead, she reminds him of his earlier boldness, pointing out that his cold demeanor doesn't match the man who made such proposal. Then, with a knowing smile, she lets the moment hang just long enough before revealing she was just teasing. Shin doesn't find the moment amusing. Without a word, she turns and leaves. Tiara, sensing the tension, smoothly shifts the conversation. She asks Rian to share stories from the flood, steering the mood in a lighter direction. Meanwhile, Shin steps away, offering to grab a drink for Rian. But first, he goes to check on Shin. He finds her alone, a quiet apology on her lips. She admits the truth, jealousy got the best of her. The conversation takes a more serious turn. Shin brings up what Barrett told him about other players in this world, including the existence of player killers. Shin hesitates before confessing. She knew about it. She hid it from him, fearing he would grow distant again, retreating into that cold, unreachable version of himself. Tears well up in her eyes. Before she can spiral further, Shin pulls her into a hug. He doesn't blame her. If the roles were reversed, he would have done the same. Relief washes over her, but Shin isn't done. He admits something else after defeating the boss. He thought his journey in this world had come to an end. But Shin never gave up on him. Even when he disappeared, she held on to hope and brought him back. Barrett had called her actions a betrayal, but Shin doesn't see it that way. There's no punishment, no resentment, just gratitude. Then she asks the question she's been holding back. If he still loves Marino, his former love interest from his original world, his answer is firm. His feelings haven't changed. Shin doesn't argue. Instead, she steps closer, pressing a kiss against his lips. Her love isn't some fleeting attachment or a remnant of the game's code. It's real. No matter how this world started, her feelings remain, and she refuses to give up. The next day, Shin sets out for the next city with Shin and Tiara by his side. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed the ride, hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more OP Ice Madness. See you in the next one.